Welcome to a world where paper rests, and so does the nation. Let the slow, gentle rhythm of early American life guide you into deep, peaceful sleep. If you enjoy these calming journeys through history, subscribe for more quiet stories, and let us know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Long before the skyscrapers pierced the sky, and before the hum of electric appliances filled every home, America was a land shaped quietly by the hands of inventors whose names history barely remembers. These early pioneers were not celebrated in grand halls, nor did their portraits hang in museums. Instead, they toiled in workshops, barns, and small community spaces, driven by curiosity, necessity, and the desire to make life a little easier, a little more efficient, and a little more comfortable. Their inventions were not meant for fame. They were meant to be useful, enduring, and practical. In the early colonies, survival demanded ingenuity. Farmers needed better plows to work the stubborn American soil. Blacksmiths sought improved tools to craft iron with greater precision. And homemakers desired household implements that could save hours of labor. These problems, humble in appearance, became the sparks for creativity. One of the most remarkable aspects of these pioneers was their ability to observe everyday life with a discerning eye. They noticed the inefficiencies in simple tasks, washing clothes, grinding grain, or tending to livestock, and imagined solutions. What seems ordinary to us today, a hand-cranked grinder, a mechanical spinning wheel, a pulley system to lift heavy buckets of water, was revolutionary in the context of the 17th and 18th centuries. Take, for instance, the story of a man named John Fitch. Though often overshadowed by the celebrated inventors of later centuries, Fitch experimented with steam-powered boats in the 1780s. His initial designs were crude, the engines heavy and unreliable, but his persistence laid the groundwork for a transportation revolution that would eventually shrink rivers, connect towns, and enable commerce to flow more freely. Fitch was never granted lasting wealth or widespread recognition, yet without his experiments, the mighty steamships of the 19th century might have emerged decades later, altering the trajectory of American trade and mobility. Similarly, there were countless inventors whose work quietly transformed domestic life. Consider the humble spinning wheel, perfected by unknown hands in colonial households. Though simple, its mechanical efficiency allowed families to produce cloth more rapidly, freeing time for other pursuits and sustaining early American communities through the harsh winters. In kitchens across the colonies, clever adaptations of cooking implements, iron pots with more even heat distribution, early forms of stoves and water pumps enabled families to thrive where survival could have been uncertain. Each innovation, small as it seemed, compounded over years, building the invisible infrastructure of daily life. Education and knowledge were also arenas for quiet invention. Early American printers experimented with presses that could produce newspapers, pamphlets, and books faster and more reliably. Benjamin Franklin, whose fame looms large in history books, was only one among many printers and tinkerers striving to spread knowledge in a fledgling nation. Franklin's own inventions, the lightning rod, bifocal glasses, and improved stove, demonstrated a pattern common to many early innovators: observing a problem, experimenting with solutions, and sharing practical results. Yet for every Franklin, dozens of less celebrated minds contributed incremental improvements that transformed daily life in ways that remain largely invisible to modern eyes. Even the roads and bridges that connected communities owe their origins to early engineers whose names rarely survive. Wooden bridges, rudimentary paving, and basic surveying techniques required both skill and foresight. These pioneers navigated uncharted landscapes, rivers, and forests, laying the literal groundwork upon which commerce, migration, and communication could flourish. Without them, the towns and cities of early America might have remained isolated, and the exchange of ideas and goods would have been far slower, stunting the young nation's growth. It is important to note that many of these innovators were motivated less by profit and more by necessity or curiosity. They worked in obscurity, often balancing multiple trades, and frequently saw their inventions copied, modified, or forgotten entirely. Yet their contributions endured, embedded in the fabric of everyday life. A more efficient plow meant more food. A safer bridge allowed travel and trade. A well-crafted stove meant warmer homes and healthier families. The measure of their success was not fame, but functionality, the quiet knowledge that life had been improved, even in small increments. Women, too, played a pivotal role, though history often overlooks them. In households, their innovations were subtle but transformative. Early washing boards, butter churns, and sewing aids were often improved by women who observed inefficiencies in their daily labor. Their inventions rarely received patents, yet they shaped the domestic rhythms of early America, allowing families to survive and communities to thrive. Without their ingenuity, many practical aspects of daily life would have remained cumbersome and exhausting, limiting the potential of early American society. In reflecting on these early pioneers, it becomes clear that innovation is rarely the product of a single eureka moment. Rather, it is the accumulation of countless small insights, experiments, and adaptations over time. The unnoticed tinkerers, the overlooked homemakers, and the uncelebrated engineers of early America created a foundation upon which future generations would build. Their legacy is not only in the machines they invented or the techniques they developed, but in the culture of problem-solving and creativity that became an essential part of American identity. By the late 17th and early 19th centuries, their work had created a more connected, more efficient, and more sustainable society. The colonies had transformed from a patchwork of isolated settlements into a network of communities capable of supporting commerce, education, and civic life. Every tool, every contraption, every minor improvement contributed to a cumulative transformation, quietly shaping the daily experience of ordinary Americans. As we look around today at the modern conveniences that we often take for granted, it is worth remembering that their origins lie not in celebrated moments or headline-grabbing inventions, but in the quiet, persistent efforts of individuals working with curiosity, care, and determination. These early pioneers, working in obscurity, laid the foundations of American life, leaving a legacy that continues to resonate in kitchens, workshops, farms, and towns across the nation.
Their story reminds us that history is not only written by the famous, but also by the unseen hands that shape our world, day by day, invention by invention. How simple mechanical innovations changed everyday work. In the early years of America, life was shaped less by grand inventions and more by practical tools designed to meet the demands of everyday work. These tools were not created for fame or profit. They were born out of necessity, ingenuity, and the persistent desire to make labor less burdensome. Farmers, blacksmiths, carpenters, and craftsmen, often working in isolation or small communities, transformed raw materials into machines, implements, and devices that quietly changed the rhythm of life across the colonies. These mechanical innovations, though simple by modern standards, laid the foundation for the industrial strength and productivity that would define the United States in the centuries to follow. Agriculture, the backbone of early American society, was profoundly shaped by these innovations. The handheld hoe, once a rudimentary tool, evolved into more sophisticated plows and seeders, allowing farmers to cultivate larger fields with less effort. John Deere, though later celebrated, was preceded by numerous unknown innovators who adapted European designs to the American soil. Wooden plows were reinforced with iron tips to withstand tougher ground. Manual seed drills allowed for more consistent planting, increasing yields and ensuring food security. In the harsh winters and hot summers of colonial life, these seemingly simple improvements meant the difference between scarcity and abundance, between struggle and stability. But it wasn't just the farm that benefited. In workshops across the colonies, mechanical ingenuity was transforming the production of goods. Blacksmiths refined hammers, tongs, and anvils, experimenting with metalworking techniques that improved both strength and efficiency. Carpenters invented jigs, clamps, and braces that allowed more precise construction of homes, barns, and bridges. Each innovation, no matter how small, multiplied productivity, enabling communities to grow, cities to expand, and infrastructure to improve. These tools became the silent engines of American progress, quietly embedding efficiency into everyday labor. Water-powered mills provide another example of early mechanical innovation. In rivers and streams across the colonies, millwrights built water wheels that drove grinding stones, saws, and textile machinery. These early mechanical systems replaced hours of back-breaking labor, turning the natural flow of water into a source of productivity. Grain could be ground into flour more quickly, timber could be cut more efficiently, and cloth could be spun and woven faster than ever before. For the average colonial worker, these innovations were transformative. Work that had once consumed an entire day could now be accomplished in hours, freeing time for education, community engagement, and leisure, a luxury that would have been unimaginable without the ingenuity of these early inventors. Transportation also benefited from mechanical inventions, even in the absence of modern engines. Wagons were reinforced with iron rims, simple gear systems allowed for easier hauling of heavy loads, pulleys and hoists enabled workers to lift timber and stones with far less strain. Each mechanical adaptation, though modest, made labor less exhausting and more productive. Craftsmen and farmers were not inventors in the modern sense. They rarely patented their designs, but their iterative improvements created a culture of innovation that spread quickly from town to town, shaping the economy and daily life. One striking aspect of these tools is their elegance in simplicity. A well-designed lever, a reinforced plowshare, or a water-powered grindstone required no electricity or complex mechanics, yet delivered profound effects on efficiency. These innovations also promoted resilience. Colonists living far from major cities or supply centers could depend on locally crafted tools to maintain their farms, workshops, and homes. This adaptability and self-reliance became a hallmark of early American life, and it would influence the nation's development for generations. Another underappreciated group of innovators were those who improved household tools. Early kitchens, for example, relied on open hearths and heavy pots, but practical minds devised adjustable roasting spits, mechanical butter churns, and hand-cranked grinders that made daily chores faster and less physically taxing. Small, mechanical solutions reduced the hours spent on cooking, cleaning, and food preparation, freeing time for education, crafts, or rest. In a society where every hour mattered, these innovations had a profound cumulative impact, quietly shaping the rhythm of family life. Industrial workshops, too, were transformed by mechanical ingenuity. Tools like lathes, planers, and early drills allowed craftsmen to produce uniform pieces, increasing the quality and consistency of furniture, machinery, and construction materials. Even the simplest improvements, an adjustable clamp, a more efficient wheel, or a better axle design, reduced human error and wasted labor, reflecting a deep understanding of both mechanics and practical problem solving. These seemingly small innovations helped lay the groundwork for the later Industrial Revolution in America,
proving that progress often begins with incremental improvements rather than sudden breakthroughs. It's also important to recognize the collaborative nature of this mechanical innovation. Knowledge was shared through apprenticeships, community workshops, and printed manuals. One craftsman's design could inspire dozens more, evolving over time to become more efficient, safer, or easier to use. Unlike today's corporate patents and trade secrets, early American inventors often worked openly, motivated by necessity and the desire to improve communal life. This culture of shared mechanical knowledge strengthened communities and spread practical skills throughout the colonies, shaping a society where innovation became a collective effort rather than an individual pursuit. Beyond practicality, these tools also nurtured creativity. A carpenter experimenting with a new joint or a farmer designing a more efficient plow was in essence engaging in problem solving at its most fundamental level. Each mechanical innovation reflected observation, imagination, and trial and error experimentation. In this way, tools were not only practical instruments, they were expressions of human ingenuity, bridging the gap between need and possibility. By the early 19th century, the cumulative impact of these mechanical innovations was undeniable. Farms were more productive, towns were better connected, and workshops produced goods with unprecedented efficiency. These changes fostered economic growth, community development, and ultimately the emergence of a society capable of supporting industrial expansion. Every lever, wheel, and crank, no matter how small, contributed to the larger story of a nation built on ingenuity, persistence, and the practical application of knowledge. As we reflect today on the conveniences of modern life, electric appliances, machines, and tools that we often take for granted, it is worth remembering the humble origins of mechanical innovation. The simple tools crafted by early American pioneers may seem primitive now, but they were revolutionary in their time. They laid the foundation for a nation capable of growth, resilience, and creativity. In every plowed field, every crafted piece of furniture, and every grist of flour, the legacy of these unseen inventors continues to echo, reminding us that the story of America's progress is inseparable from the tools that built it. In the end, the tools that built a nation were more than instruments. They were expressions of human ingenuity, the quiet labor of countless hands, and the bedrock of a society that valued practical innovation. They were invisible scaffolds upon which early Americans constructed not only their homes and farms, but the very fabric of daily life. Without these mechanical innovations, the nation that would emerge by the 19th century might have been slower, weaker, and far less connected. Today, as we look around our homes, schools, and workplaces, it is a reminder that progress often begins with the simplest of ideas: a wheel, a lever, or a tool designed to make life a little better.
Everyday household items that shaped family life. The heartbeat of early American life was the home. It was around the hearth that families gathered, meals were prepared, stories were told, and the rhythms of daily life were set. Yet life in these homes was far from easy. Tasks that we now consider simple, cooking, washing, heating, and lighting, were labor-intensive and time-consuming. What many do not realize is that even the smallest domestic inventions had a profound impact on family life, subtly shaping the way Americans worked, rested, and connected with one another. These innovations, often created by anonymous inventors or homemakers themselves, were essential to the development of American households. In the kitchens of the colonial era, fire was both a tool and a challenge. Open hearths provided heat for cooking, but demanded constant attention and skill. Early inventors recognized the inefficiencies and dangers inherent in this setup. Cast iron stoves, developed in the late 18th century, allowed for more controlled and efficient cooking. Meals could be prepared more quickly and safely, and less fuel was required.
Families could now gather around a hearth without the constant smoke, sparks, or unpredictable flames that had long made cooking a hazardous chore. This seemingly small innovation not only improved safety, but also reshaped family dynamics, freeing time for women, who were primarily responsible for domestic labor, to attend to other household or educational tasks. Similarly, simple tools such as hand-cranked butter churns, grain mills, and meat grinders revolutionized the preparation of food. Churning butter by hand was a time-consuming process that required hours of steady effort. The introduction of mechanical churns dramatically reduced labor and increased productivity, allowing families to produce enough for both consumption and trade. Grain mills, whether powered by hand, water, or wind, enabled communities to process wheat and corn efficiently. These domestic inventions were not luxuries, they were necessities that supported the growth and sustenance of households, particularly in rural America. Washing clothes was another area of domestic life transformed by ingenuity. Before the advent of washing machines, laundry involved laborious scrubbing on washboards, boiling water, and endless rinsing. Inventors and homemakers created early mechanical devices to ease this process: paddles, hand-powered wringers, and rotating drums that reduced the physical strain of cleaning garments. These improvements did more than save time. They improved hygiene and health within families, particularly in communities where infectious diseases could easily spread. A clean home, made possible by simple innovations, contributed to stronger families and healthier children, laying the groundwork for a society that valued sanitation and domestic efficiency. Lighting was another domestic frontier. Candles and oil lamps had long been the primary sources of illumination, but they were dim, smoky, and often dangerous. Early innovations such as improved wicks, safer lamp designs, and eventually kerosene lamps transformed the nighttime experience of American households. Rooms could be brighter and safer, allowing families to engage in reading, sewing, or conversation long after sunset. These improvements extended productive hours and enriched the cultural life of the home, fostering literacy and leisure in ways that were previously impossible. The design of furniture and household storage also reflected inventive thinking. Early Americans needed sturdy, multifunctional furniture capable of withstanding daily use. Simple innovations such as folding tables, chests with compartments, and chairs designed for comfort without sacrificing durability helped families make the most of limited space. Even seemingly minor additions, like adjustable shelves or hooks for hanging pots and utensils, contributed to more organized and efficient households. In every corner of the home, inventors were quietly working to improve the quality of daily life, creating environments that were functional, safe, and adaptable. Water management in the home was another critical challenge that inspired inventive solutions. Pumps, cisterns, and early plumbing systems allowed families to access fresh water without long, exhausting trips to wells or streams. This not only improved convenience, but also enhanced health and sanitation. Water-powered appliances, though rudimentary by modern standards, were marvels of engineering in their day, reducing the labor required for cooking, cleaning, and laundry. By providing a reliable water source, these innovations supported domestic routines that allowed families to thrive in both rural and urban settings. It is important to note that many of these domestic inventions were driven by women whose daily experience of household labor gave them unique insights into practical problem solving. While their contributions were rarely patented or publicly recognized, their innovations shaped the very fabric of American domestic life. Tools and devices created in kitchens, workshops, and living spaces were essential to maintaining households, raising children, and sustaining communities. These unsung inventors demonstrated creativity, resourcefulness, and foresight, transforming mundane tasks into manageable, efficient processes. Education and entertainment also benefited from domestic innovation. Early homes often doubled as schools or social spaces, and simple devices such as improved desks, writing tools, and storage systems facilitated learning. In addition, innovations like spinning wheels or small musical instruments allowed families to engage in both productive and leisurely activities. By enabling a balance between labor, education, and recreation, these household inventions supported holistic family life and nurtured skills and culture that would carry into future generations. Even the smallest domestic objects, buttons, locks, hinges, and utensils, reflected innovation and adaptation. These items may seem mundane today, but in the context of early American life, they represented thoughtful solutions to practical problems. Buttons made clothing more functional and durable. Locks increased home security, and well-designed utensils improved efficiency in cooking and dining. Collectively, these small innovations created a ripple effect, enhancing the quality of daily life in ways that were both tangible and profound. The cumulative impact of these domestic inventions is remarkable. By reducing labor, improving safety, and increasing efficiency, they allowed families to spend more time together, focus on education, and participate in community life. Early American households were hubs of ingenuity, where invention was not a luxury, but a necessity. Every tool, device, and invention represented the quiet work of minds attuned to practical needs, shaping the experience of home in ways that resonated far beyond the individual household. In retrospect, the story of domestic innovation reminds us that progress often begins in the most intimate spaces. The kitchen, the living room, the workshop, these were the laboratories of everyday life, where invention emerged from necessity and creativity intersected with function. Without these early innovations, the American home would have been a far more laborious and constrained environment. The tools and devices created by these unsung inventors allowed families to thrive, laying the foundation for modern domestic life and the comforts we now often take for granted. As we look around today at well-equipped kitchens, efficient laundry systems, and safe, comfortable homes, it's worth remembering that these conveniences are the descendants of centuries of practical innovation. The inventors of household tools may have been forgotten by history, but their impact endures in every room, every appliance, and every family routine. From hearth to home, their ingenuity shaped not only daily life, but also the identity of early American society, a society built on resourcefulness, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of making life better for everyone under one roof.
Uncelebrated inventors and factories and mills. Long before skyscrapers rose above city skylines and industrial complexes spread across the American landscape, the nation's progress depended on the quiet labor of inventors and craftsmen who powered the early factories and mills. These individuals were seldom celebrated. Their names are often lost to history. Yet, without their ingenuity, the industrial foundations of America would have been far weaker, slower to develop, and less resilient. The silent engines of industry, mechanical innovations, ingenious processes, and practical improvements transformed raw materials into goods, strengthened local economies, and shaped the daily life of countless Americans. The story begins with the textile mills of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. In towns along rivers and streams, water-powered mills became the epicenters of production. Here, unheralded inventors improved spinning frames, looms, and weaving equipment, turning labor-intensive crafts into more efficient processes. While Eli Whitney's cotton gin is widely remembered, there were countless other innovators who devised mechanisms to automate the spinning of yarn, the weaving of cloth, and the processing of raw fibers. These improvements may have seemed incremental at the time, but they multiplied productivity exponentially.
A mill that once required dozens of workers could now produce more cloth with fewer hands, changing both labor practices and local economies. Iron and steel production was another arena where silent ingenuity drove industrial progress. Blacksmiths, metalworkers, and early engineers experimented with furnaces, rolling mills, and forging techniques that improved both the quality and quantity of metal produced. Innovations in smelting and casting allowed American manufacturers to build stronger tools, machinery, and structures. Many of these inventors never patented their designs or sought recognition. Their goal was simple: better, more reliable production that could support the growing needs of a nation on the move. Yet their cumulative impact was immense. Bridges were stronger, tools more durable, and machinery more efficient, all because of the quiet problem-solving of these unseen minds. Factories themselves became laboratories of invention. Workers and foremen constantly modified machinery to suit their needs. A pulley here, a gear adjustment there, or a redesign of a crank could dramatically increase output. These adjustments were often shared among local workshops, creating networks of knowledge that spread practical solutions far beyond their point of origin. Unlike the publicized inventions of a single genius, these modifications were incremental, iterative, and collaborative, reflecting a culture in which the collective ingenuity of many minds drove progress. The uncelebrated inventors of industry were not only focused on efficiency, they also improved safety and working conditions. Early factories were noisy, hot, and dangerous places. Mechanical improvements such as enclosed belts, better ventilation systems, and safety guards reduced the risk of accidents, making industrial labor more sustainable. Though these enhancements were rarely acknowledged in history books, they mattered profoundly to workers' lives, enabling families to rely on steady employment without constant fear of injury. These improvements also contributed indirectly to the economic growth of towns and cities, as a healthier, more productive workforce could sustain higher levels of output over time. Another transformative area was the milling of grain and other foodstuffs. Flour mills, powered by water or later by steam, allowed communities to process their crops efficiently, ensuring food supply and stability. Millwrights, often unrecognized artisans, designed and refined the gears, wheels, and grinding mechanisms that made large-scale production possible. These innovations did not merely increase output, they also improved consistency, making flour and other products more reliable in quality. For communities dependent on these resources, the silent labor of these inventors ensured both sustenance and stability, illustrating how unheralded industrial ingenuity touched lives far beyond the factory walls. In addition to production, transportation infrastructure intersected with industrial innovation. Early inventors improved canals, wagons, and later rail systems to support factories and mills. Moving raw materials and finished products efficiently was as crucial as improving production itself. The collaborative work of engineers, millwrights, and local craftsmen created networks that connected towns, facilitated trade, and laid the groundwork for regional and national economic growth. The innovations in transportation and logistics, while often uncredited, allowed factories to thrive, workers to find employment, and communities to flourish. Women also played vital roles in early industrial settings, though their contributions often went unrecognized. In textile mills, for instance, women were both operators and improvers of machinery. Their keen observations led to adjustments that reduced errors, prevented damage to materials, and improved overall efficiency. In domestic industries such as candle making, soap production, and small-scale textile workshops, women's practical inventions shaped not only output, but also the social and economic structures of communities. Their labor combined skill, creativity, and problem-solving, exemplifying the quiet ingenuity that powered early American industry. The Industrial Revolution in America was not simply the product of famous inventors or dramatic breakthroughs. It was the result of countless small improvements and iterative innovations made by ordinary workers, craftsmen, and homemakers. Each adjustment to a loom, each modification to a water wheel, each clever adaptation of a gear mechanism contributed to a cumulative transformation. This invisible network of innovation enabled factories to produce goods more efficiently, towns to grow, and families to access products that improved daily life. These silent engines of industry also fostered a culture of experimentation and ingenuity. Workers learned to observe problems carefully, to test solutions methodically, and to adapt designs to meet real-world demands. This hands-on problem-solving ethos became a defining feature of American manufacturing, one that would continue to influence innovation well into the 20th century. The lessons of these uncelebrated inventors, collaboration, persistence, and practical creativity, remain relevant today, reminding us that industrial progress is rarely a story of a single genius, but rather a tapestry woven from the efforts of many. By the mid-19th century, the impact of these silent inventors was evident across the country. Towns with efficient mills became centers of trade and commerce. The consistent production of textiles, tools, and processed food supported growing populations and facilitated urbanization. Communities prospered because the machinery worked reliably, and the labor of countless unseen inventors ensured that America could meet the increasing demands of a developing nation. These contributions, though largely invisible, were the bedrock upon which America built its industrial might. Reflecting on this era, it becomes clear that innovation does not always announce itself with fanfare or fame. Much of the progress that shaped American daily life was driven by quiet, persistent, and uncelebrated inventors. They worked in factories, workshops, and mills, guided by curiosity, necessity, and a desire to improve efficiency. While history may remember the names of a few iconic figures, the broader story of industrial transformation is written in countless, often anonymous contributions that allowed a nation to grow stronger, more productive, and more connected. In the end, the silent engines of industry were more than machines. They were embodiments of human ingenuity. They reflected the skills, creativity, and determination of the people who built, improved, and maintained them. Without these uncelebrated inventors, American factories and mills would have struggled to meet the demands of a growing population, and the nation's journey towards industrial leadership would have been slower and more arduous. Today, as we benefit from the conveniences and productivity of modern industry, it is worth remembering the hidden hands and quiet minds that powered the earliest engines of American progress.
Inventors who transformed roads, rails, and rivers. In the early years of the United States, one of the greatest challenges facing settlers, farmers, and merchants was distance. Towns were scattered across vast landscapes, rivers carved barriers into communities, and roads, if they existed, were often little more than dirt paths, muddy and impassable during much of the year. Travel was slow, unpredictable, and often dangerous. Yet it was precisely these challenges that inspired a generation of transportation innovators, individuals whose inventive minds transformed roads, rails, and rivers, quietly reshaping the daily life of Americans and laying the foundation for a nation bound together by commerce, communication, and connection. The earliest efforts focused on roads and bridges. While European settlers brought techniques from the Old World, they soon realized that the American terrain required adaptations. Early inventors and engineers developed new methods for road construction, creating raised corduroy roads, stone pavements, and gravel surfaces that withstood rain and erosion better than simple dirt paths. Bridges, too, evolved from precarious wooden crossings into more durable designs. Covered bridges, popularized in the early 19th century, protected wooden trusses from weather, extending their lifespan and providing safer passage for people and goods. These improvements may seem modest today, but at the time they made travel more reliable, encouraged trade, and allowed communities to grow. Rivers, which were both lifelines and obstacles, also became the focus of inventive minds. Ferries, canals, and locks were developed to navigate the waterways more efficiently. Canal systems such as the Erie Canal, completed in 1825, were marvels of early engineering. While the project is often attributed to planners and politicians, countless engineers, mechanics, and laborers made practical innovations to overcome the challenges of varying water levels, rocky terrain, and heavy freight. Locks, aqueducts, and spillways enabled boats to travel farther, faster, and more safely, connecting inland farms and towns to coastal markets. For ordinary Americans, these waterway innovations meant access to new goods, opportunities to sell crops, and the ability to maintain relationships with distant relatives, essentially shrinking the distances between people. The age of railroads represented the next frontier of transportation innovation. While the steam engine is often credited to inventors like George Stephenson in England, American engineers and machinists adapted and improved rail technology for the unique needs of a sprawling country. Tracks were designed to handle heavier loads and rougher terrain, engines were refined for reliability, and bridges and trestles were engineered to withstand both weather and weight. Railroads transformed the movement of goods and people, turning journeys that once took weeks by wagon or boat into days or hours. These innovations made it possible for farmers in the Midwest to sell produce in New York or Boston, for raw materials from Pennsylvania coal mines to fuel factories in Massachusetts, and for families to stay connected across distances that had previously seemed insurmountable. Road vehicles were evolving in parallel. Early wagons and carts were improved with stronger axles, better wheel designs, and suspension systems that allowed for smoother rides over uneven terrain. Wheelwrights and blacksmiths constantly experimented with these designs, often without seeking fame or patent protection. Their innovations had immediate practical impacts: less wear and tear on goods, reduced strain on animals, and safer travel for passengers. Over time, these incremental improvements accumulated, creating more reliable systems that supported trade, migration, and expansion westward. Ferries and early steamboats also played a crucial role in bridging distances, particularly along rivers such as the Mississippi, Ohio, and Hudson. While Robert Fulton is frequently celebrated with the Claremont, many unnamed inventors contributed to the refinement of hull design, paddle wheels, and steam engines, making river transport faster and more efficient. Communities along rivers thrived as goods moved more quickly, and families could travel greater distances with relative safety. The combination of roads, bridges, canals, and steamboats created a network that made America more interconnected than ever before, setting the stage for industrial and commercial growth. In rural areas, local innovators worked tirelessly to improve smaller-scale transportation solutions. Farmers developed sledges, plows, and carts suited to snow, mud, or rocky soil. Blacksmiths reinforced wagon wheels with iron rims and experimented with gear ratios that made hauling heavy loads more manageable. Even simple innovations such as pivoting wheels or adjustable yokes for animals made daily life less arduous. These inventions rarely made it into textbooks or history books, yet they were essential to sustaining the livelihoods of ordinary Americans. Urban centers also benefited from inventive approaches to movement. Early streetcars, horse-drawn trolleys, and improved road grading allowed cities to expand, facilitating commerce, commuting, and social mobility. Engineers and machinists adapted European ideas to American conditions, creating practical transportation solutions that could handle heavier loads, more passengers, and harsher climates. These innovations enabled cities to grow rapidly while maintaining efficiency and accessibility, transforming urban life for workers, merchants, and families alike. Beyond physical engineering, transportation innovation influenced social and cultural life. Faster, more reliable travel allowed for the exchange of ideas, the spread of news, and the movement of skilled workers. Families could maintain connections across states, students could pursue education in distant towns, and communities could access new products and services. In this sense, transportation was not only a practical improvement, it was a transformative social force, reshaping patterns of work, leisure, and interaction. The legacy of these transportation innovators is evident in the very structure of America today. Highways, rail lines, and navigable rivers trace the routes first envisioned, tested, and refined by inventive minds. Every bridge that spans a river, every track that carries a train, and every canal lock that guides boats reflects a history of practical problem-solving, experimentation, and persistence. These innovations made possible the economic expansion, territorial growth, and social cohesion that defined the nation's development in the 19th century. What is most remarkable about these inventors is that their work was often invisible to the public eye. They did not seek fame, accolades, or wealth. They were guided by a desire to solve problems, to make travel safer and more efficient, and to connect people and goods across vast distances. Yet their contributions touched millions of lives, altering the course of daily life in towns, cities, and rural communities alike. Every farmer reaching a distant market, every family reunited after weeks apart, and every merchant transporting goods relied on the ingenuity of these transportation pioneers. In retrospect, the story of transportation innovation in early America is a story of ingenious meeting necessity. Roads, rails, and rivers were not just conduits for commerce, they were lifelines that enabled a growing nation to function, to expand, and to prosper. The inventors who transformed these pathways may not have been remembered in history books, but their work continues to shape American life. Today, as we cross bridges, travel on highways, or ride trains, we follow the paths laid down by those silent pioneers who bridged distances, connected communities, and helped America move forward, one innovation at a time.
The unsung heroes behind early mail, telegraph, and printing were essential in building the communication networks that shaped early America. In the early years of America, one of the greatest challenges facing a growing nation was the simple act of communicating. Towns and settlements were scattered across vast distances. Rivers and mountains often separated communities, and the flow of information was slow, unreliable, and fraught with difficulty. Yet, despite these obstacles, a generation of unsung heroes, innovators in mail delivery, printing, and telegraphy, quietly transformed the ways Americans connected, shared knowledge, and participated in civic life. These individuals may have lacked fame, but their work shaped the very fabric of everyday life, enabling ideas, news, and personal messages to travel farther and faster than ever before. The postal system, humble yet essential, was the lifeline of early American communities. Before modern transportation, sending a letter was an arduous process. Riders traveled long distances on horseback or by stagecoach, braving harsh weather, rough terrain, and the threat of bandits. Inventors and organizers quietly improved every step of this system. Roads were mapped more efficiently, relay stations established to change horses, and route schedules optimized to reduce delays. Ordinary postmasters and riders, often unknown beyond their local communities, devised ingenious methods to ensure letters reached their destinations. Each improvement, whether in timing, routing, or organization, made the world feel smaller and more connected for families, merchants, and government officials alike. Printing, too, played a transformative role. The press was the engine of literacy, education, and civic engagement. Early printers in colonial towns experimented with typefaces, presses, and paper handling techniques to make the production of newspapers, pamphlets, and books faster and more reliable. While Benjamin Franklin is often remembered as a famous printer, countless others worked in obscurity, improving the efficiency of presses and ensuring the flow of printed material to towns across the colonies. Their efforts provided farmers, craftsmen, and merchants with vital information about markets, weather, and politics, while also fostering a culture of learning and curiosity. Without these improvements, knowledge would have traveled more slowly, and communities would have remained isolated from the ideas shaping the young nation. The invention and refinement of the telegraph in the 19th century marked a revolution in communication, yet it relied heavily on the contributions of many individuals whose names history has largely forgotten. Early engineers, technicians, and operators experimented with electrical circuits, insulated wires, and signal systems to create a reliable method of transmitting information over long distances. Samuel Morse may be remembered for his code and public demonstrations, but countless others refined the technology, ensuring that messages could travel quickly and accurately. Telegraph lines, stretching from coast to coast, transformed commerce, politics, and personal life, allowing decisions and news to move at the speed of electricity rather than horseback. These innovations had profound implications for daily life. Families separated by hundreds of miles could exchange letters with greater confidence that they would arrive safely and in a timely manner. Merchants could make informed decisions based on timely market reports, ensuring goods moved efficiently across the country. Newspapers could publish reports from distant regions, allowing citizens to participate in political discourse with a more comprehensive understanding of the nation. In short, these unsung heroes of communication connected people in ways that were both practical and transformative, quietly knitting the country together. Even small-scale innovations mattered. Local postmasters often devised methods to sort and deliver mail more efficiently. Printers in rural towns experimented with lighter presses or more durable typesetting methods to produce materials faster. Telegraph operators found creative ways to maintain lines, troubleshoot failures, and ensure messages reached even remote communities. Though these efforts were rarely celebrated, they were essential to the smooth functioning of society. Each minor improvement compounded into a system capable of supporting a rapidly growing population, expanding commerce, and sustaining democratic engagement. Women, too, played a role in the evolution of communication. While their contributions are less documented, women often acted as mail carriers, printers' assistants, or operators in telegraph offices. They contributed ingenuity, attention to detail, and problem-solving skills that kept communication networks reliable. Their labor ensured that letters reached families, newspapers circulated, and early telegraph messages were transmitted without error. These contributions, often overlooked, were vital to the efficiency and reliability of communication in a nation that relied on information to thrive. The culture surrounding early communication also encouraged innovation. Printers and postmasters shared ideas across towns. Telegraph operators collaborated on techniques to improve reliability and speed. In each case, progress was incremental, driven not by the desire for fame, but the practical necessity of connecting people. The collective ingenuity of countless unknown individuals enabled America to overcome its geographical challenges and create a network of information that supported economic growth, social cohesion, and civic participation. The effect on commerce cannot be overstated. Merchants in New York relied on telegraph messages to adjust prices based on reports from Chicago markets. Farmers in Pennsylvania could access timely information about demand in distant cities, influencing planting and shipping decisions. Printers provided accurate weather reports and commodity prices, allowing communities to plan and respond efficiently. The ability to transmit information reliably reshaped the economy, creating opportunities that were impossible just a few decades earlier. These changes were not the work of a single inventor, but of a multitude of innovators whose cumulative impact was transformative. In civic life, the unsung heroes of communication facilitated the spread of political ideas and public debate. Newspapers printed and distributed pamphlets that informed citizens about legislation, elections, and civic responsibilities. Telegraph lines allowed political leaders to communicate across states, coordinating efforts and responding to emergencies. These networks of information helped foster a more engaged and informed populace, strengthening the democratic ideals upon which the nation was founded. In a sense, every letter delivered, every newspaper printed, and every telegraph message transmitted represented a quiet but essential contribution to the growth of American democracy. Reflecting on the contributions of these invisible innovators, it becomes clear that communication was never simply a matter of technology, it was a matter of connection. Their work affected daily life, commerce, education, and civic engagement. Families could maintain relationships over long distances, communities could share vital information, and the nation could respond to challenges collectively. The progress achieved in mail delivery, printing, and telegraphy illustrates the power of practical problem-solving, persistence, and ingenuity, even when the innovators themselves remain largely unknown. In today's world of instant messaging, email, and high-speed internet, it is easy to forget the immense challenges early Americans faced in communicating across distances. Yet the foundations of these modern systems rest upon the labor and ingenuity of those who worked without fame, recognition, or reward. Their innovations created networks that connected people, enabled commerce, and strengthened civic life, allowing a young nation to grow and thrive. The story of communications without fame reminds us that progress often depends on the quiet, persistent work of those who see a problem, devise a solution, and refine it through trial, error, and creativity. These unsung heroes of early America did more than improve efficiency. They transformed the way people lived, worked, and connected, laying the groundwork for a nation united not just by geography, but by the flow of ideas and information.
How forgotten farmers and engineers revolutionized food production. The story of America's growth is, at its core, a story of the land. Fertile fields stretched across vast territories, offering the promise of sustenance and prosperity. Yet turning this promise into reality required ingenuity, skill, and persistence. Beyond the famous inventors often celebrated in history books, there were countless forgotten farmers and engineers whose innovations revolutionized food production, transforming the nation's ability to feed itself and shaping the daily lives of ordinary Americans. These agricultural architects may have labored quietly, but their impact was profound, laying the foundation for modern farming practices and the abundance of food that would sustain a growing nation. In the early colonial period, farming was labor-intensive and often precarious. Families relied on hand tools like hoes, sickles, and scythes, and relied heavily on animal power for plowing and transport. Crops were vulnerable to unpredictable weather, pests, and soil depletion. Against these challenges, inventive farmers experimented tirelessly to improve yields and efficiency. They adapted European techniques to local soils, tested crop rotation methods, and designed implements that could reduce labor while increasing productivity. Many of these improvements were modest: a plow reshaped for heavier clay soil, a harrow redesigned to break clumps of earth more efficiently, or a seed drill that allowed precise planting rather than scattering by hand. Yet the cumulative effect of these small innovations transformed farming into a more productive and sustainable enterprise. John Deere is widely remembered for his steel plow, which revolutionized farming in the Midwest. But before Deere, countless unnamed blacksmiths and farmers had experimented with plow designs, testing materials and adjusting shapes to better penetrate tough soil. They observed, tinkered, and refined, often sharing their designs informally with neighbors. Their collaborative spirit, rooted in practical necessity rather than fame, created a culture of continuous improvement. Each small advance contributed to a growing body of agricultural knowledge that would later support large-scale mechanization. Mechanization was another arena where forgotten innovators made critical contributions. Simple machines, water-powered mills, threshers, and early reaping devices dramatically reduced the hours required to harvest and process crops. While some inventors like Cyrus McCormick are remembered for mechanized reapers, many others quietly improved designs, making them more durable, efficient, or easier to operate. Farmers and engineers collaborated to test new systems, refining gears, belts, and levers to suit local needs. These innovations not only increased productivity, but also reduced physical strain on laborers, making farming more sustainable and accessible. Irrigation and water management were also crucial in expanding agricultural productivity. Forgotten engineers designed canals, ditches, and rudimentary pumps to distribute water to fields, particularly in regions where rainfall was inconsistent. By controlling water supply, farmers could stabilize crop yields, grow more diverse crops, and expand cultivation into previously marginal lands. These interventions required both ingenuity and perseverance, as engineers had to account for terrain, water flow, and seasonal variability. Their efforts enabled communities to thrive in areas that might otherwise have remained sparsely populated or underproductive. Soil management, too, benefited from practical experimentation. Early farmers observed that continuous planting of the same crop depleted soil nutrients. They experimented with crop rotation, planting legumes to restore fertility, or introducing cover crops to prevent erosion. While these methods were not inventions in the mechanical sense, they represented critical innovations in agricultural science, ensuring that farms remained productive over generations. Many of these insights were passed orally or through community gatherings, spreading knowledge across regions without formal recognition. Transportation of agricultural goods was intimately connected to food production. The invention of wagons, reinforced carts, and simple conveyance systems allowed farmers to bring crops to local markets more efficiently. In some cases, farmers collaborated with local blacksmiths to improve wheel designs, axle strength, and suspension for heavy loads. These improvements enabled rural communities to participate in regional economies, linking small-scale farmers to urban markets and contributing to the nation's economic growth. Livestock management also benefited from inventive minds. Farmers designed better feeding systems, pens, and milking devices to increase efficiency and improve animal welfare. Early dairies experimented with mechanical churns and simple pasteurization methods, improving both productivity and public health. While individual inventors rarely received credit, their practical contributions ensured that communities had access to reliable sources of protein, dairy, and other animal products. The impact of these agricultural innovations extended far beyond the farm. Increased productivity allowed families to sustain larger households and freed time for education, crafts, and civic participation. Communities flourished as markets expanded, schools were built, and towns became centers of commerce. Innovations in agriculture directly shaped the social, economic, and cultural fabric of early America, illustrating how practical ingenuity could ripple outward to touch every aspect of life. Women played a significant, though often overlooked, role in agricultural innovation. In many households, women managed gardens, processed crops, and oversaw food preservation. They devised clever methods for canning, drying, and storing produce, ensuring families could survive through long winters and poor harvests. Their inventive techniques, though rarely patented or formally recognized, were essential to sustaining households and communities, and they contributed to the cumulative knowledge that shaped agricultural practices across the nation. The success of these forgotten farmers and engineers also reflected a culture of observation and adaptation.
They tested new techniques, learned from failures, and shared their discoveries with neighbors. Knowledge was cumulative, iterative, and communal. These agricultural architects demonstrated that innovation does not always occur in laboratories or workshops. It can emerge from the fields, barns, and gardens where people respond creatively to the challenges of everyday life. By the mid-19th century, the impact of these agricultural innovations was evident. Crop yields increased, food distribution improved, and communities could support growing populations. These developments enabled westward expansion, industrial growth, and urbanization, as surplus food allowed more people to live in towns and cities. The quiet ingenuity of farmers and engineers made it possible the abundance that Americans came to expect and rely on, yet their names are often absent from the history books. Reflecting on their contributions reminds us that progress often begins with observation, necessity, and persistence. The forgotten farmers and engineers of early America shaped the nation not through fame or wealth, but through practical solutions that improved daily life. Their innovations transformed agriculture from a subsistence activity into a productive, sustainable, and economically significant enterprise. Each plow, pump, threshing machine, and irrigation ditch represented not just a technical advance, but a commitment to ensuring that communities could thrive. Today, when Americans enjoy the abundance of supermarkets, well-stocked pantries, and reliable food supply chains, it is easy to forget that these conveniences rest on centuries of practical ingenuity. The agricultural architects of early America laid the groundwork for modern food production, enabling the nation to grow, prosper, and feed generations of citizens. Their legacy endures in every field, every farm, and every meal, a testament to the quiet, transformative power of innovation born from necessity.
Inventors who quietly improved public health. In early America, daily life was often fragile, with disease, poor sanitation, and limited medical knowledge posing serious threats to communities. Yet behind the scenes, countless unsung inventors, engineers, and practical thinkers quietly transformed health and hygiene, laying the foundations for a safer, more resilient society. These innovators often worked in obscurity, improving water supply, waste management, medical instruments, and public health systems. While their names are rarely remembered, their contributions shape the lives of ordinary Americans, often preventing illness, saving lives, and improving the overall quality of life. Water and sanitation were critical challenges in the early United States. Many towns and rural communities relied on wells, rivers, or cisterns for drinking water, often without understanding the risk of contamination. Early inventors and local engineers experimented with filtration systems, improved pumps, and sewer designs to ensure cleaner water. Wooden pipes were replaced by more durable materials, and wells were lined and covered to reduce exposure to pollutants. In some towns, community leaders collaborated with craftsmen to build rudimentary drainage systems, diverting waste away from homes and public spaces. These innovations may seem modest today, but at the time they dramatically reduced waterborne illnesses such as cholera and dysentery that had once decimated populations. Hygiene in the home also benefited from practical invention. Simple innovations like soap molds, hand washing basins, and improved washing techniques helped families maintain cleanliness, particularly in crowded households. Early inventors created tools to make laundry, dishwashing, and personal hygiene more efficient and safer. Women, who were primarily responsible for domestic care, often devised ingenious methods to improve sanitation, from water-saving devices to mechanical washing aids. Their innovations, though rarely documented, had a profound impact on the health of their families and communities. Medical instruments and procedures were another area where hidden innovators made lasting contributions. Blacksmiths, metalworkers, and craftsmen developed more precise surgical tools, improved hypodermic syringes, and devices for delivering medications. Apothecaries experimented with methods to preserve medicines, ensuring they remained effective for longer periods. Even small improvements like sharper scalpels, more accurate thermometers, or better designed mortars and pestles enhanced the ability of physicians to diagnose, treat, and prevent disease. These incremental innovations saved countless lives, yet the inventors themselves often remained anonymous, their work absorbed into broader medical practice. Public health initiatives also relied on practical ingenuity. In towns and cities, early health boards and civic leaders collaborated with engineers to improve waste disposal, design public baths, and regulate food and water safety. Simple but effective systems, such as covered trash bins, improved ventilation in crowded buildings, and drainage ditches to prevent stagnant water, helped prevent outbreaks of disease. These measures were not glamorous, nor were they widely celebrated, but they formed the backbone of community health, protecting thousands of citizens from illnesses that could otherwise spread unchecked. Hospitals and clinics benefited from similar hidden innovations. Furniture and tools were adapted to reduce the risk of infection, from washable surfaces to better bed designs. Medical staff experimented with sterilization techniques using heat or chemicals long before germ theory was fully understood. Practical problem solving became the guiding principle. How could patient care be safer, faster, and more effective? Many of these methods spread informally between hospitals, workshops, and practitioners, creating a culture of incremental improvement that had long-term effects on public health. The impact of these innovations extended beyond immediate health improvements. Communities that invested in sanitation, clean water, and better hygiene saw lower mortality rates, healthier children, and increased productivity. Workers were less likely to fall ill, students could attend school more regularly, and families could thrive in conditions that had once been hazardous. These improvements were not the result of a single breakthrough, but of countless small contributions by individuals who observed problems, experimented with solutions, and shared what they learned with others. Women played a particularly important role in these advances. Beyond domestic hygiene, women contributed to community health by designing tools and methods for food preservation, infant care, and household sanitation. They developed improved cooking and storage techniques that reduced spoilage and foodborne illness. In rural areas, women often acted as midwives, apothecaries, or informal health advisors, using their knowledge to prevent and treat illnesses. While these contributions were rarely formalized in patents or publications, they were essential to the survival and well-being of families and communities. Even in rural areas, hidden health innovations were evident. Farmers devised ways to clean barns and stables to reduce the spread of disease among livestock, indirectly protecting human populations. Water mills and small mechanical devices were adapted to provide cleaner water for homes and fields. Local craftsmen improved tools for butchering, food processing, and waste removal, all of which contributed to healthier communities. These practical solutions, born out of observation and necessity, illustrate how everyday ingenuity could profoundly affect public health. The cumulative effect of these hidden innovations is remarkable. By improving sanitation, hygiene, and medical practice, these inventors reduced the prevalence of disease, extended life expectancy, and increased the resilience of communities. Their work created the conditions necessary for a growing population to thrive, enabling economic development, education, and civic engagement. While the public may have focused on famous leaders, the invisible work of these inventors ensured that the nation could grow healthier, stronger, and more capable of meeting the challenges of expansion and industrialization.
In retrospect, the story of health and hygiene in hidden hands reminds us that innovation is not always flashy or celebrated. It is often quiet, incremental, and deeply practical. Every improved water pump, better drainage system, sterilized instrument, or hygienic household device reflected careful observation, ingenuity, and a commitment to improving the lives of others. The inventors themselves may have remained anonymous, but their contributions ripple through history, affecting generations of Americans. Today, as we enjoy clean water, reliable sanitation, and effective medical care, it is easy to overlook the hidden innovators who made these advancements possible. The foundations of public health in America were not laid solely by famous scientists or legislators. They were built by countless practical minds who observed, experimented, and refined solutions to the everyday challenges of health and hygiene. Their quiet work protected families, strengthened communities, and helped a young nation survive and prosper. In the end, health and hygiene in hidden hands is a testament to the profound impact of uncelebrated innovation. These inventors remind us that the well-being of society often depends on the persistent, practical efforts of those who work quietly, solving problems one improvement at a time. Through their ingenuity, ordinary Americans were able to live safer, healthier lives, and the nation itself was given the foundation to grow stronger, more resilient, and more capable of meeting the challenges ahead.
Early experiments that brightened homes and streets. Before the flick of a switch could illuminate a room or street, America relied on fire for light. Candles, oil lamps, and hearths filled homes and streets with a dim, flickering glow. While these sources provided warmth and comfort, they were inefficient, labor-intensive, and often hazardous. Over time, a generation of inventors, many of them uncelebrated, worked tirelessly to harness electricity and develop reliable lighting. Their experiments transformed daily life, extended productive hours, improved safety, and laid the groundwork for the electrified society we take for granted today. The earliest steps toward modern lighting were modest but significant. Candle makers and oil lamp designers experimented with materials and designs that could burn brighter, longer, and more safely. Innovations in wicks, oil reservoirs, and lamp shapes reduced smoke, soot, and fire hazards. Although these improvements were incremental, they had profound effects on household life. Families could spend evenings reading, studying, and engaging in conversation rather than struggling to see by weak, smoky light. These small improvements quietly expanded the possibilities of daily life, extending hours for education, work, and leisure. Parallel to these domestic innovations, inventors experimented with electrical lighting, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Early experiments in arc lamps and incandescent lighting were often dangerous, inconsistent, and expensive. Yet they represented a bold vision, a world where homes, streets, and public spaces could be illuminated reliably and safely. Engineers, chemists, and tinkerers collaborated on everything from filament materials to vacuum techniques, testing hundreds of designs before achieving consistent success. While Thomas Edison is often remembered as a pioneer, he built upon decades of experimentation and the work of numerous lesser-known inventors whose contributions remain largely invisible in history. Street lighting was another critical area of innovation. In towns and cities, gas lamps initially replaced candles and oil lamps, providing brighter, more reliable illumination. Yet maintaining these systems was labor-intensive, requiring constant fueling, cleaning, and repair. Inventors devised mechanical and chemical improvements to gas lamps, extending burn time, improving brightness, and reducing the risk of explosions. When electricity began to replace gas in the late 19th century, further innovations allowed cities to install networks of wires, switches, and bulbs that brought night into day. These advancements increased public safety, facilitated commerce after dark, and fostered a sense of community in urban areas.
Homes benefited tremendously from these lighting innovations. Early electrical experiments included small dynamos, wiring techniques, and bulb designs that could safely bring light into living spaces. Engineers and electricians tested insulation, filament materials, and circuit layouts to prevent fires and ensure consistent performance. Each experiment, failure, and minor improvement contributed to a growing understanding of how to electrify homes efficiently. By the turn of the 20th century, many American households were enjoying safer, brighter, and more convenient lighting, revolutionizing daily routines and enabling activities previously limited by darkness. Industrial and commercial spaces were also transformed by these innovations. Factories, workshops, and warehouses could operate longer hours, increasing productivity and reducing downtime. Shops and markets could attract customers after sunset, stimulating economic growth. Inventors experimented with large-scale wiring, switches, and fixtures, ensuring that electricity could be distributed safely and efficiently across buildings and neighborhoods. These improvements required careful observation, meticulous trial and error, and the collaboration of electricians, engineers, and laborers, many of whom remain unnamed in the historical record. Education and culture benefited in ways that were just as significant as practical improvements. Schools could hold evening classes, libraries could extend hours, and theaters could provide reliable lighting for performances. The ability to illuminate public and private spaces transformed not only work and commerce, but also leisure, learning, and social life. Families could read together, students could study late into the evening, and communities could gather safely in public spaces after dark. The invisible hands of these lighting pioneers quietly reshaped American society, improving the quality of life in both tangible and subtle ways. Safety was another key concern driving innovation. Candles and oil lamps posed constant fire hazards, particularly in wooden homes and crowded urban neighborhoods. Early electrical systems were designed to reduce the risk of fires, short circuits, and explosions. Inventors developed fuses, insulated wiring, and safer fixtures, creating lighting systems that were not only brighter, but also more reliable and secure. These improvements prevented countless accidents, demonstrating how practical ingenuity could save lives while enhancing daily comfort. The work of these pioneers also reflected a culture of experimentation and collaboration. Inventors tested materials, shared insights, and refined designs iteratively. Even unsuccessful attempts provided critical lessons that guided future breakthroughs. From filament composition to circuit layout, every discovery contributed to the growing body of knowledge that made modern electrical lighting possible. Communities of inventors, engineers, and tinkerers formed informal networks of knowledge, exchanging ideas and building upon each other's successes and failures. Women, too, contributed to the evolution of lighting. In domestic settings, they often devised safer ways to manage candles and oil lamps, experimented with reflectors and shades to improve illumination, and assisted in testing early electrical systems. Their insights into daily practical use informed design decisions that improved safety and usability. Though seldom formally credited, these contributions were integral to the successful adoption of lighting innovations in homes across the nation. By the early 20th century, America had been transformed by these collective efforts. Streets, homes, factories, and schools were illuminated reliably, extending productive hours and improving quality of life. The quiet work of countless inventors, both celebrated and forgotten, had made it possible a world where darkness no longer constrained human activity. The ability to see, work, study, and socialize after sunset reflected not only technological progress, but also the ingenuity, persistence, and creativity of those who had labored behind the scenes. Reflecting on this era, it becomes clear that the story of lighting is not just a story of technology, but of human ambition and practical problem-solving. Every safer lamp, brighter bulb, and electrified street was the result of careful observation, trial and error, and incremental improvement. While the most famous inventors are remembered, the majority of contributors worked quietly, often anonymously, yet their impact shaped daily life in profound ways. Today, when Americans flip a switch and instantly illuminate a room or street, it is easy to forget the decades of experimentation and innovation that made this possible. The legacy of early lighting pioneers endures in every home, school, factory, and street lamp, a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the transformative potential of practical invention. In lighting the darkness, these unsung heroes brightened not only physical spaces, but also the possibilities of everyday life, creating a foundation upon which modern society continues to thrive.
Toys, games, and small inventions that shaped recreation. When thinking about America's history of invention, most people imagine factories, transportation, and electricity. Yet some of the most creative and influential innovations were far smaller, quieter, and often aimed simply at bringing joy to daily life. Toys, games, and recreational devices shaped childhoods, family routines, and community leisure in ways that went beyond entertainment. These uncelebrated inventors, craftsmen, artisans, and imaginative minds helped Americans enjoy play, exercise creativity, and strengthen social bonds. Their contributions remind us that invention is not only about necessity, but also about the human desire for joy, curiosity, and connection. In the early 19th century, children's toys were often handmade, simple, and functional. Dolls carved from wood, spinning tops, miniature wagons, and small mechanical devices encouraged creativity and imagination. Craftsmen experimented with designs that could be mass-produced or more durable, allowing families of modest means to provide meaningful play experiences for their children. Even these small objects reflected ingenuity: a top that spun longer, a doll jointed for movement, or a puzzle that challenged the mind. Each innovation helped develop motor skills, problem-solving abilities, and social interaction, laying the foundation for more elaborate recreational inventions in later decades. Board games, too, became increasingly popular during the 19th century, reflecting both creativity and social learning. Simple games like checkers, chess, and card games were adapted into new formats, often with innovative boards, rules, or scoring systems. These adaptations made play more engaging, encouraging strategic thinking, cooperation, and friendly competition. Small inventors and publishers, often operating out of modest shops or homes, experimented with new game concepts and production techniques, making recreational experiences accessible to a wider audience. Families gathered around these games, bridging generational gaps and creating shared memories that extended beyond the home. Mechanical toys were a particularly innovative domain. Early clockwork devices, wind-up toys, and miniature machines fascinated children and adults alike. Inventors experimented with gears, springs, and levers to create motion, often pushing the boundaries of available materials and engineering techniques. These toys not only entertained, but also sparked curiosity about mechanics, physics, and craftsmanship. A child watching a wind-up bird hop or a miniature locomotive run on tiny tracks might later grow into an engineer, inspired by a simple object that combined play with practical observation. Outdoor recreation also benefited from inventive thinking. The development of swings, seesaws, and early playground equipment reflected careful attention to safety, durability, and fun. Communities and private families invested in structures that encouraged exercise, coordination, and social interaction. Even modest improvements, sturdier ropes, smoother pivots, or reinforced supports made these devices safer and more enjoyable. These recreational inventions contributed to healthier children, stronger communities, and a culture that valued both physical activity and social connection. Sports and organized games were another arena for innovation. Early baseball, croquet, and lawn tennis required equipment, playing fields, and inventive approaches to rules. Craftsmen and inventors experimented with ball designs, bats, mallets, and nets to improve durability, performance, and accessibility. Some small-scale innovators even designed scoring systems and measurement tools, ensuring fair play and consistency. These seemingly minor inventions helped transform informal play into organized recreation, fostering teamwork, sportsmanship, and leisure culture across towns and cities. Toys and games were not only for children, they engaged entire families and communities. Storytelling, miniature theaters, musical instruments, and craft kits encouraged collaborative play. Inventors considered not just durability, but also engagement. How could a toy or game captivate attention, stimulate imagination, or teach a skill? By addressing these questions, they created products that were more than mere diversions. They were tools for cognitive development, creativity, and social learning. Seasonal and regional innovations also reflected cultural adaptation. In snowy regions, sleds and ice skates were refined for safety and performance. In urban areas, simple tabletop games and puzzles offered indoor amusement during harsh winters. Inventors observed how families interacted with their environment and devised solutions that enhanced play while respecting local conditions. This interplay between context, culture, and creativity highlights how recreational innovations were deeply embedded in everyday life. Music and sound-based play provided another avenue for invention. Early harmonicas, miniature pianos, and mechanical music boxes were designed for both amusement and education. They allowed children and adults to experiment with rhythm, melody, and coordination. Instrument makers refined materials, tuning, and mechanics to make them more durable, portable, and enjoyable. These innovations contributed not only to leisure, but also to cultural literacy, inspiring appreciation for music and artistic expression from an early age. Educational toys and games merged fun with learning. Alphabet blocks, counting devices, and simple puzzles encouraged cognitive development while entertaining. Inventors designed objects that combined tactile engagement with intellectual challenge, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of human curiosity and learning processes. These playful inventions prepared children for literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking, demonstrating that recreation could be both joyful and instructive. Even small, mundane objects reflected inventive thinking in the service of recreation. Kites, spinning tops, jump ropes, and marbles were improved over decades with better materials, shapes, and balancing mechanisms. Craftsmen refined these items to enhance performance, safety, and enjoyment, proving that innovation could thrive even in the simplest forms. Families, neighbors, and friends often exchanged techniques, designs, and ideas, creating informal networks of knowledge that spread recreational improvements widely. The cumulative effect of these recreational innovations was transformative. They encouraged creativity, physical activity, and social cohesion. They strengthened family bonds and nurtured community interaction. They prepared children for future learning and inspired curiosity about mechanics, strategy, and design. Perhaps most importantly, they reflected the human desire for joy, exploration, and connection, a reminder that innovation need not always be monumental to have lasting impact. By the early 20th century, the recreational landscape in America had been reshaped by these quiet inventors. Toys, games, musical devices, and playground equipment were widely available, allowing children and adults to engage in meaningful, imaginative, and physically active play. While the creators of these inventions rarely became household names, their impact on everyday life was profound. They enriched childhood, strengthened communities, and added joy to ordinary routines, proving that even the smallest innovations can leave enduring legacies.
Looking back, it becomes clear that recreation and play were essential parts of American life long before modern electronics or digital entertainment. Toys, games, and leisure inventions helped Americans develop skills, socialize, and enjoy life more fully.
The ingenuity of these uncelebrated inventors, whether in a workshop, a home, or a small factory, reminds us that innovation is as much about delight and human connection as it is about necessity or profit. Through their work, everyday life became brighter, more engaging, and more joyful. Devices and systems that quietly safeguarded citizens. While the history of American invention often celebrates machines that increased productivity or connected communities, some of the most life-changing innovations worked quietly in the background, protecting people from harm. Early Americans faced hazards in homes, workplaces, and public spaces, from fires and industrial accidents to crime and natural disasters. Behind the scenes, uncelebrated inventors designed devices, systems, and practices that safeguarded life, helping citizens feel secure and communities thrive. These innovators often went unnoticed, yet their practical ingenuity profoundly shaped daily life. Fire safety was one of the earliest areas of concern. Homes were constructed from wood, heated by open flames, and lit by candles or oil lamps, creating constant fire risks. Inventors experimented with fire-resistant materials, safer stoves, and improved chimneys to reduce hazards. Even simple innovations, such as iron stove doors, raised hearths, and protective grates, could prevent devastating accidents. In urban areas where fires could spread rapidly, inventors devised early fire alarms, hand-pumped fire engines, and water distribution systems. Though many of these inventors remain unknown, their contributions saved countless lives and preserved property across growing towns and cities. Industrial safety was another domain where quiet innovation mattered. Factories and mills in the 19th century were often dangerous, with moving machinery, heavy loads, and hazardous materials posing constant threats. Inventors developed guards for belts and gears, emergency stop mechanisms, and improved ventilation systems to reduce accidents and improve air quality. These inventions were not glamorous or widely publicized, but they dramatically reduced injuries and fatalities among workers. Each incremental improvement reflected careful observation, practical problem solving, and a deep concern for human life. Personal safety also inspired invention. Locks, keys, and early security devices evolved to protect homes, businesses, and valuable goods. Craftsmen experimented with designs that were both more reliable and harder to tamper with, from reinforced door locks to innovative safes. These innovations allowed families and merchants to feel more secure in their daily lives, encouraging commerce, community stability, and personal peace of mind. Many of these contributions remain invisible today, yet they fundamentally shaped how Americans managed risk and property. In addition to mechanical solutions, early inventors explored systems and protocols to safeguard citizens. For example, community watch programs, coordinated alarm networks, and early emergency signaling systems reflected a combination of social ingenuity and practical technology. By integrating local knowledge with inventive devices such as signal bells, lanterns, or coded messages, citizens could respond more effectively to fires, floods, or criminal threats. These systems illustrate how invention was often a blend of human organization and technical creativity, quietly making communities safer. Transportation also benefited from safety-minded innovation. As roads, bridges, and railroads expanded, inventors sought ways to prevent accidents and protect travelers. Improved braking systems for trains, reinforced bridges, and safer carriage designs reduced the risk of injury. Early traffic signals, reflective markers, and road maintenance tools helped prevent collisions and facilitate smoother travel. Each contribution, while small in isolation, collectively enhanced public safety and supported the growth of commerce and social mobility across the nation. Healthcare and emergency response saw similar hidden ingenuity. Devices like early stretchers, portable medical kits, and safety-conscious hospital equipment enabled faster and safer treatment. Inventors refined tools for lifting, transporting, and treating patients, often working closely with medical professionals to identify practical improvements. Even small adaptations, such as reinforced splints or better sanitary protocols, had life-saving consequences. The work of these innovators demonstrates that safety is not merely a matter of prevention, but also of enabling effective response when accidents or emergencies occur. Women played a vital role in safety innovations, particularly in domestic and community settings. They devised fire prevention techniques, safer cooking methods, and household storage systems to reduce hazards. Midwives and caregivers adapted medical instruments and sanitary practices to protect mothers and infants, while homemakers experimented with safer chemical storage and food preservation techniques. Though largely unrecognized in historical records, these contributions were essential to protecting families and communities. Natural disasters also inspired practical innovation. Early inventors developed rainwater collection systems, flood barriers, and rudimentary storm shelters to help communities survive extreme weather. In coastal areas, watchtowers and signaling devices were introduced to warn residents of approaching storms. Inland, settlers built levees, dikes, and drainage systems to protect farmland and towns. These innovations were rarely spectacular, but they prevented loss of life, preserved livelihoods, and helped communities recover more quickly from environmental challenges. The cumulative effect of these safety innovations was profound. They reduced mortality rates, prevented injuries, and provided a sense of security that allowed families and communities to prosper. Citizens could sleep, work, travel, and live with greater confidence, knowing that practical systems and devices existed to protect them from common hazards. The impact was social as well as practical. Safer environments encouraged education, commerce, and civic engagement, strengthening the foundation of a growing nation. One remarkable aspect of these innovations is their quiet persistence. Safety inventions often went unnoticed until tragedy struck. Only then did the value of a protective device or system become clear. Yet countless lives were saved by those who foresaw danger and devised solutions in advance. From fireproof stove doors to early emergency signaling systems, these inventions reflect a proactive approach to problem solving, a commitment to safeguarding life even when recognition was unlikely. By the early 20th century, many of these safety innovations had become standard. Homes were better protected from fire, workplaces were safer, transportation was more reliable, and communities had developed systems to respond to emergencies. While the inventors themselves were often forgotten, their work created a safer, more resilient society. Every lock, guard, alarm, and protective measure represents the quiet ingenuity of individuals who prioritized human life above fame or fortune. Reflecting on this era, it is clear that safety and security are fundamental to everyday life. The devices and systems created by these uncelebrated inventors not only saved lives, but also shaped how Americans interacted with their environment, built communities, and pursued opportunities. They demonstrate that innovation is not always about spectacle or invention for profit. It can be about observing risks, solving problems, and quietly improving the world for everyone. In the end, the story of safety and security in hidden hands is a testament to the enduring value of practical ingenuity. These inventors remind us that the protection of life is a vital form of innovation, one that quietly enables society to thrive. Through their creativity and diligence, ordinary Americans were able to live, work, and grow in safer environments, and the nation itself became stronger, more resilient, and better equipped to face the challenges of the modern era.
Creators who transformed entertainment and daily soundscapes. From the crackle of a fireplace to the rhythmic clatter of early factories, the sounds of daily life have always shaped the American experience. Yet amid these ordinary noises, inventive minds sought to transform how people heard and enjoyed the world. Music, noise management, and auditory innovations quietly revolutionized entertainment and daily life, creating experiences that were once unimaginable. Many of these creators remained unsung, yet their work reshaped households, towns, and cities, influencing both leisure and work in profound ways. In the 18th and early 19th centuries, musical instruments were handmade and often expensive, placing them out of reach for many families. Artisans experimented with construction techniques, materials, and designs to produce instruments that were not only more durable, but also more affordable and easier to play. Simple innovations in strings, reeds, and keys allowed broader access to music, enabling families to entertain themselves at home and share cultural traditions. This democratization of music brought communities together, encouraging social gatherings, festivals, and home performances that enriched daily life. Mechanical music devices were another domain of inventive creativity. Music boxes, player pianos, and early phonographs fascinated Americans, offering consistent, high-quality sound that could be enjoyed without a performer. Inventors experimented with gears, cylinders, and playback mechanisms to refine these devices, improving accuracy, tone, and durability. Though often overshadowed by later commercial successes, these early experiments laid the groundwork for a national appreciation of recorded and mechanical music, allowing households to experience complex compositions that were once confined to concert halls. Noise management and acoustic innovations also quietly improved daily life. In urban areas, streets, factories, and workshops were often loud and chaotic, affecting productivity and comfort. Inventors devised methods to reduce unwanted sound, such as insulation for walls, mufflers for machinery, and quieter mechanical components. In theaters, concert halls, and community spaces, innovations in architectural design and materials improved acoustics, ensuring that audiences could enjoy performances without distortion. These seemingly small improvements enhanced both work and leisure, demonstrating that innovation could improve not just entertainment, but quality of life itself. Instruments themselves evolved in parallel with these mechanical and acoustic innovations. Wind instruments, pianos, and stringed instruments benefited from incremental improvements that refined tone, volume, and playability. Craftsmen experimented with materials, from wood to brass to early metals, to produce instruments that could withstand temperature changes, resist wear, and produce richer sound. These technical refinements allowed musicians to explore new styles and genres, expanding the possibilities of music and performance across America. Communities also embraced sound innovation in ways that extended beyond entertainment. Bells, clocks, and early signaling devices regulated daily routines, marking time for schools, factories, and public gatherings. Inventors experimented with bell sizes, chimes, and clock mechanisms to create clear, reliable signals that could reach entire neighborhoods. These auditory innovations structured daily life, coordinated work, and brought a sense of rhythm and order to towns and cities. While their purpose was practical, they also added to the soundscape, contributing to a shared communal experience. The evolution of music in public spaces relied on inventive thinking as well. Street performers, traveling orchestras, and early bandstands experimented with acoustics, amplification, and instrument combinations to reach larger audiences. Communities supported these innovations, building structures and stages designed to optimize sound projection. Over time, these contributions helped transform public entertainment, allowing larger gatherings to enjoy music with clarity and engagement, fostering cultural life in towns and cities alike. Education and personal enrichment were also influenced by sound-based inventions. Early music lessons, tuners, and instructional devices enabled individuals to learn instruments more effectively. Innovators created metronomes, pitch pipes, and educational apparatus that allowed students to develop rhythm, pitch accuracy, and musical literacy.
These innovations empowered Americans to cultivate skills that enhanced both leisure and professional opportunities, illustrating the practical and cultural impact of auditory invention. Women played a significant, though often overlooked, role in these developments. In homes, they often maintained and repaired instruments, experimented with tuning techniques, and taught children to play. In some cases, they contributed to the design of instructional devices or simpler-to-play instruments, expanding access to music in households that lacked formal instruction. Their efforts ensured that music was not confined to elites, but integrated into everyday life, enhancing both education and enjoyment. Sound innovation also intersected with industrial and technological progress. Factories and workshops adopted early noise-reducing measures, improving worker safety and productivity. Early inventors designed quieter looms, presses, and machinery, often experimenting with materials, tension, and alignment to minimize disruptive sound. These improvements not only enhanced efficiency, but also contributed to the comfort and well-being of workers, showing that auditory considerations were an essential aspect of practical invention. The cumulative effect of these musical and auditory innovations was transformative. They enriched homes, classrooms, theaters, streets, and factories, enhancing daily life in ways that extended beyond entertainment. Music, instruction, and sound management fostered creativity, social bonding, education, and productivity. While the inventors themselves rarely became famous, their innovations created experiences that shaped cultural norms, work habits, and leisure activities across the country. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Americans had access to a wide range of auditory innovations. Mechanical instruments, instructional devices, performance spaces, and noise-reducing technologies created richer, more accessible, and safer soundscapes. Families could enjoy music at home, workers could focus without constant distraction, and communities could gather for shared auditory experiences. Each innovation, while often small or incremental, collectively transformed how Americans heard and engaged with the world around them. Reflecting on this era, it becomes clear that the sound of progress depended on the quiet, creative work of countless unsung inventors. They observed needs, experimented with materials, refined mechanisms, and shared knowledge across communities. Their contributions remind us that invention is not always about the monumental or visible. It can also be about shaping experiences, enhancing daily life, and enriching culture through thoughtful, practical innovation. Today, when Americans enjoy music, public performances, or even the hum of a well-designed machine, they are experiencing the legacy of these hidden auditory pioneers. Their work transformed both entertainment and daily soundscapes, creating a richer, more vibrant world. By improving how people heard, experienced, and managed sound, these inventors brought joy, clarity, and harmony to countless lives, leaving a lasting imprint on the nation's cultural and technological landscape.
Innovations that reduced toil and increased efficiency. Long before modern machines hummed with digital precision, countless Americans toiled daily under the weight of physically demanding work. Agriculture, manufacturing, domestic chores, and small-scale crafts required hours of repetitive effort, often leaving little time for education, leisure, or innovation. Yet behind the scenes, a remarkable group of inventors quietly designed devices to lighten labor, streamline processes, and improve efficiency. These invisible workers transformed daily life by making work less grueling and more productive, yet their names rarely appear in history books. In agriculture, labor-saving devices were essential to expanding production. Farmers experimented with plows, seed drills, threshing machines, and hay rakes to reduce manual effort and increase yields. Each innovation, whether an adjustment to a plow blade or the addition of gears to a reaping machine, allowed a farmer to cultivate more land with less physical strain. While prominent inventors such as Cyrus McCormick are often celebrated for mechanical reapers, countless lesser-known blacksmiths, carpenters, and farmers contributed refinements that improved durability, efficiency, and ease of use. These incremental improvements quietly reshaped American agriculture, reducing the hours of backbreaking labor required to sustain families and communities. Domestic life also benefited from practical innovation. Household chores, laundry, cooking, and cleaning were time-consuming and physically taxing. Inventors devised washing machines, wringers, rotary beaters, and improved stoves to make domestic work more manageable. Women, often the primary users of these devices, provided feedback, modified designs, and shared innovations with neighbors. Their practical insights guided the development of tools that reduced fatigue, increased efficiency, and allowed more time for education, family, and community engagement. These innovations, though small in scale, had profound effects on the daily lives of countless Americans. In manufacturing and workshops, labor-saving devices multiplied productivity. Simple machines, gears, levers, pulleys, and presses were refined and adapted for specific tasks, from textile production to metalworking. Early inventors designed devices to cut, shape, or assemble materials more quickly and accurately than manual methods allowed. Even minor modifications, such as a smoother gear alignment or a more efficient handle design, could dramatically reduce worker fatigue and increase output. Over time, these innovations laid the groundwork for more complex industrial machinery, demonstrating the cumulative power of practical problem-solving. Transportation also benefited from labor-saving innovations. Simple devices like horse-drawn wagons, improved carts, and conveyor systems allowed people to move goods more efficiently over both short and long distances. These devices reduced the physical burden of transport while enabling commerce and trade to expand. Bridges, ferries, and canal locks, designed and refined by engineers and craftsmen, further reduced effort and improved safety, allowing communities to thrive by connecting producers with markets. Labor-saving innovations were not confined to physical tools. They also included organizational and procedural improvements. Inventors developed methods to streamline workflow, reduce repetitive steps, and coordinate tasks more effectively. In factories, managers and engineers refined assembly processes, scheduling systems, and material handling techniques, reducing wasted effort and improving productivity. In homes, the sequence of domestic tasks was optimized through practical observation, leading to more efficient routines that eased daily burdens. These innovations highlight how ingenuity often involves not just invention, but intelligent organization and applied problem-solving. Small-scale inventors often operated outside the spotlight. Blacksmiths, machinists, carpenters, and domestic innovators experimented with new materials, designs, and mechanisms to improve efficiency. Their work, shared informally within communities or passed from neighbor to neighbor, multiplied in impact as practical improvements were adopted widely. Each refinement, whether in a simple tool or a mechanical device, had a ripple effect, reducing toil and enhancing productivity for hundreds or even thousands of people. Education and skill development also intersected with labor-saving innovation. Apprentices and young workers learned from devices that automated or simplified difficult tasks, allowing them to focus on mastering techniques rather than exhausting repetitive labor. This practical apprenticeship system ensured that knowledge and skills could be transmitted efficiently while minimizing physical strain. Over time, these cumulative improvements shaped a workforce capable of handling more complex tasks and innovations. Even seemingly mundane domestic objects reflect the ingenuity of labor-saving design. Improved butter churns, grain grinders, sewing machines, and egg beaters reduced hours of manual labor in the home, empowering families to accomplish more in less time. These devices exemplify how innovation is often a response to daily challenges, solutions designed not for fame or fortune, but for practical effectiveness. They remind us that progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, incremental, and profoundly transformative in daily life.
Women were key drivers of domestic labor innovation. Through observation, experimentation, and shared experience, they identified bottlenecks, devised tools, and modified existing devices to reduce effort. These contributions, though often overlooked, fundamentally shaped the design of household tools and the evolution of domestic technology. Women's ingenuity turned time-consuming chores into manageable tasks, allowing them to participate more fully in family, community, and economic life. The cumulative effect of these labor-saving devices was transformative. Across agriculture, domestic life, manufacturing, and transport, work became less grueling, productivity increased, and daily routines were reshaped. Families had more time for education and leisure, workers experienced less physical strain, and communities flourished as efficiency improvements multiplied across industries. These invisible innovations laid the foundation for modern conveniences, mechanized production, and the expansion of opportunity in American life. By the early 20th century, labor-saving devices had permeated nearly every aspect of American daily life. Homes were equipped with practical appliances, factories operated with machines that multiplied output, and farms produced more food with less physical strain. While the inventors themselves often remained anonymous, their contributions profoundly improved the lives of millions, demonstrating that innovation need not always be monumental to have enduring impact. Reflecting on this era, it is clear that labor-saving devices are a testament to practical ingenuity, observation, and persistence. Whether a blacksmith refining a plow, a homemaker improving a washing machine, or a machinist streamlining factory work, these inventors shaped the rhythm and quality of daily life. Their work reminds us that the quiet pursuit of efficiency, comfort, and ease can be as transformative as any headline-grabbing breakthrough. Through their innovations, Americans were able to work smarter, live better, and build a society where time and effort could be devoted to growth, creativity, and opportunity.
Innovations that reduced toil and increased efficiency. Long before modern machines hummed with digital precision, countless Americans toiled daily under the weight of physically demanding work. Agriculture, manufacturing, domestic chores, and small-scale crafts required hours of repetitive effort, often leaving little time for education, leisure, or innovation. Yet behind the scenes, a remarkable group of inventors quietly designed devices to lighten labor, streamline processes, and improve efficiency. These invisible workers transformed daily life by making work less grueling and more productive, yet their names rarely appear in history books. In agriculture, labor-saving devices were essential to expanding production. Farmers experimented with plows, seed drills, threshing machines, and hay rakes to reduce manual effort and increase yields. Each innovation, whether an adjustment to a plow blade or the addition of gears to a reaping machine, allowed a farmer to cultivate more land with less physical strain. While prominent inventors such as Cyrus McCormick are often celebrated for mechanical reapers, countless lesser-known blacksmiths, carpenters, and farmers contributed refinements that improved durability, efficiency, and ease of use. These incremental improvements quietly reshaped American agriculture, reducing the hours of back-breaking labor required to sustain families and communities. Domestic life also benefited from practical innovation. Household chores, laundry, cooking, and cleaning were time-consuming and physically taxing. Inventors devised washing machines, wringers, rotary beaters, and improved stoves to make domestic work more manageable. Women, often the primary users of these devices, provided feedback, modified designs, and shared innovations with neighbors. Their practical insights guided the development of tools that reduced fatigue, increased efficiency, and allowed more time for education, family, and community engagement. These innovations, though small in scale, had profound effects on the daily lives of countless Americans. In manufacturing and workshops, labor-saving devices multiplied productivity. Simple machines, gears, levers, pulleys, and presses were refined and adapted for specific tasks, from textile production to metalworking.
Early inventors designed devices to cut, shape, or assemble materials more quickly and accurately than manual methods allowed. Even minor modifications, such as a smoother gear alignment or more efficient handle design, could dramatically reduce worker fatigue and increase output. Over time, these innovations laid the groundwork for more complex industrial machinery, demonstrating the cumulative power of practical problem-solving. Transportation also benefited from labor-saving innovations. Simple devices like horse-drawn wagons, improved carts, and conveyor systems allowed people to move goods more efficiently over both short and long distances. These devices reduced the physical burden of transport while enabling commerce and trade to expand. Bridges, ferries, and canal locks, designed and refined by engineers and craftsmen, further reduced effort and improved safety, allowing communities to thrive by connecting producers with markets. Labor-saving innovations were not confined to physical tools. They also included organizational and procedural improvements. Inventors developed methods to streamline workflow, reduce repetitive steps, and coordinate tasks more effectively. In factories, managers and engineers refined assembly processes, scheduling systems, and material handling techniques, reducing wasted effort and improving productivity. In homes, the sequence of domestic tasks was optimized through practical observation, leading to more efficient routines that eased daily burdens. These innovations highlight how ingenuity often involves not just invention, but intelligent organization and applied problem-solving. Small-scale inventors often operated outside the spotlight. Blacksmiths, machinists, carpenters, and domestic innovators experimented with new materials, designs, and mechanisms to improve efficiency. Their work, shared informally within communities or passed from neighbor to neighbor, multiplied in impact as practical improvements were adopted widely. Each refinement, whether in a simple tool or a mechanical device, had a ripple effect, reducing toil and enhancing productivity for hundreds or even thousands of people. Education and skill development also intersected with labor-saving innovation. Apprentices and young workers learned from devices that automated or simplified difficult tasks, allowing them to focus on mastering techniques rather than exhausting repetitive labor. This practical apprenticeship system ensured that knowledge and skills could be transmitted efficiently while minimizing physical strain. Over time, these cumulative improvements shaped a workforce capable of handling more complex tasks and innovations. Even seemingly mundane domestic objects reflect the ingenuity of labor-saving design. Improved butter churns, grain grinders, sewing machines, and egg beaters reduced hours of manual labor in the home, empowering families to accomplish more in less time. These devices exemplify how innovation is often a response to daily challenges, solutions designed not for fame or fortune, but for practical effectiveness. They remind us that progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, incremental, and profoundly transformative in daily life. Women were key drivers of domestic labor innovation. Through observation, experimentation, and shared experience, they identified bottlenecks, devised tools, and modified existing devices to reduce effort. These contributions, though often overlooked, fundamentally shaped the design of household tools and the evolution of domestic technology. Women's ingenuity turned time-consuming chores into manageable tasks, allowing them to participate more fully in family, community, and economic life. These cumulative effects of these labor-saving devices were transformative. Across agriculture, domestic life, manufacturing, and transport, work became less grueling, productivity increased, and daily routines were reshaped. Families had more time for education and leisure, workers experienced less physical strain, and communities flourished as efficiency improvements multiplied across industries. By the early 20th century, labor-saving devices had permeated nearly every aspect of American daily life. Homes were equipped with practical appliances, factories operated with machines that multiplied output, and farms produced more food with less physical strain.
While the inventors themselves often remained anonymous, their contributions profoundly improved the lives of millions, demonstrating that innovation need not always be monumental to have enduring impact. Reflecting on this era, it is clear that labor-saving devices are a testament to practical ingenuity, observation, and persistence. Whether a blacksmith refining a plow, a homemaker improving a washing machine, or a machinist streamlining factory work, these inventors shaped the rhythm and quality of daily life. Their work reminds us that the quiet pursuit of efficiency, comfort, and ease can be as transformative as any headline-grabbing breakthrough. Through their innovations, Americans were able to work smarter, live better, and build a society where time and effort could be devoted to growth, creativity, and opportunity.
Reflections on inventors whose names were lost, but their ideas endured. History often celebrates the bright names, the Edisons, Deeres, and the Cormacks, whose inventions are etched into textbooks and memorialized in museums. Yet beneath this layer of recognition lies a quieter, equally powerful legacy. The countless inventors whose names were lost to time, but whose ideas transformed everyday life. These forgotten minds shaped America in ways both subtle and profound, leaving enduring marks on agriculture, industry, domestic life, health, and culture. Their work is a testament to the power of practical ingenuity, persistence, and creativity, reminding us that innovation is often a collective, iterative process rather than a solitary, celebrated moment. From the earliest days of settlement, these uncelebrated inventors confronted daily challenges with ingenuity and determination. Farmers tinkered with plows, seed drills, and irrigation systems. Blacksmiths and carpenters refined mechanical devices that reduced labor. Homemakers devised tools to ease domestic chores. Each improvement, no matter how small, carried the potential to transform lives. While few names were recorded, the impact of these inventions extended across communities, enhancing productivity, health, comfort, and enjoyment. In homes, the contributions of forgotten inventors were particularly profound. From cooking stoves and water pumps to early washing machines and food preservation techniques, countless hands improved domestic life. These innovations allowed families to conserve energy, improve hygiene, and enjoy greater comfort. Women, often the primary users and innovators of household technology, shared practical insights that guided improvements in design, safety, and efficiency. Their work was rarely documented, yet it created lasting benefits that extended from one generation to the next. In agriculture, the story was similar. The development of more efficient plows, seeders, threshers, and irrigation devices often involved small, incremental changes by local blacksmiths, craftsmen, and farmers. These innovations increased crop yields, reduced toil, and expanded the reach of American agriculture. While history remembers a few prominent names, the majority of inventors, those whose ideas improved everyday tools, remain anonymous. Yet the crops harvested, the farms sustained, and the communities nourished are living proof of their ingenuity. Industrial advancement, too, relied on the labor of forgotten inventors. Early factories, mills, and workshops were rife with hazards and inefficiencies. Uncelebrated innovators improved gears, belts, presses, and mechanical systems, creating safer, more efficient work environments. Each small refinement, whether a better designed cog, a smoother lever, or a safer workspace, added up to transformative change. Workers benefited from reduced strain, increased productivity, and improved safety, yet the inventors behind these advances rarely received recognition. Health and hygiene, critical to survival in early America, were likewise shaped by nameless inventors. Water filtration systems, sanitation devices, improved medical instruments, and household hygiene tools prevented illness, saved lives, and allowed communities to thrive. These contributions were often the product of observation, trial, and experimentation, carried out quietly in homes, workshops, or local hospitals. Without fanfare,
These innovators strengthened the foundations of public health and helped make ordinary life safer for countless Americans. Even recreation and culture owe much to forgotten minds. Toys, games, musical instruments, and recreational devices were shaped by inventive individuals experimenting with materials, mechanisms, and designs. Their work inspired creativity, social interaction, and education, enriching childhoods and fostering community cohesion. Music boxes, mechanical toys, board games, and instruments introduced generations to new forms of entertainment, subtly shaping culture without leaving a single name in history books. Transportation and infrastructure improvements also relied on practical innovation by lesser-known inventors. Bridges, roads, canals, and wagons were refined incrementally over decades, often by local engineers, craftsmen, and laborers whose names were never recorded. These improvements facilitated commerce, communication, and movement, knitting communities together and enabling the nation to expand and prosper. Each nail driven, each gear adjusted, and each design improved contributed to the country's growth, though the minds behind them faded into obscurity. The enduring lesson of these forgotten inventors is that innovation is rarely the result of a single person or a single breakthrough. It is a cumulative process built on observation, experimentation, and incremental improvement. Ideas are tested, refined, and shared, often across generations. Even when individual names are lost, the results, tools, devices, systems, and methods persist, shaping daily life in profound and lasting ways. This legacy is also a story of collaboration and community. Knowledge was shared informally among neighbors, apprentices, and fellow artisans. Practical solutions traveled from one workshop to another, from farm to farm, from home to home. In this way, innovation became a communal enterprise rooted in observation, trial and error, and practical problem-solving. The collective wisdom of these forgotten minds created foundations upon which later, more visible inventions could build. The impact of these invisible innovators extends into the modern world. Many of the conveniences Americans take for granted, efficient tools, household appliances, safety devices, transportation systems, and public health improvements have their roots in the experiments and refinements of these uncelebrated inventors. Their work demonstrates that progress is not always spectacular or famous, but often quiet, persistent, and cumulative. By reflecting on their contributions, we gain a broader understanding of innovation itself. True invention is not just about patents, fame, or publicity. It is about observing challenges, devising solutions, and improving lives. The forgotten minds of history remind us that the ordinary work of problem-solving, whether in a home, farm, workshop, or community, can leave a lasting impact that resonates across generations. In the end, the story of these forgotten inventors is both humbling and inspiring. Their names may be lost, but their ideas endure. Every tool, device, system, and improvement they contributed continues to shape American life. By honoring their legacy, we recognize the quiet, practical genius that underpins progress and the profound influence of those who labored without expectation of fame or recognition. Their ingenuity laid the groundwork for a nation capable of growth, resilience, and creativity. The next time a farmer tills a field, a family enjoys a safer home, a worker benefits from an efficient machine, or a child delights in a toy, we can remember that these experiences are the product of countless uncelebrated minds. Though history may not remember their names, it carries forward their contributions. The lasting impact of these forgotten inventors reminds us that innovation is not only about invention, it is about improving life, quietly, persistently, and enduringly.
How the collective efforts of forgotten inventors still shape modern American life. Modern America thrives on convenience, efficiency, and innovation. From the devices we use in our homes to the infrastructure that moves us, from the food on our tables to the music that fills our lives, nearly every aspect of daily living has been shaped by countless inventions.
Yet beneath the celebrated names of famous inventors lies a deeper, often overlooked truth. The modern conveniences we enjoy today are built upon the collective, persistent work of thousands of forgotten innovators. These uncelebrated minds quietly transformed everyday life, leaving a legacy that continues to shape the nation with every step we take. Consider the most ordinary objects around us: the adjustable faucet in the kitchen, the seamless sewing machine, the safe stove, or even a simple wooden chair. All are the product of iterative improvements by countless inventors who observed problems, experimented, and refined designs. Many of these contributors were never recorded in history books. Their efforts, however, created tools and systems that made domestic life safer, easier, and more comfortable. Every family enjoying clean water, safer cooking, or more efficient household tools today benefits from the ingenuity of those whose names were largely forgotten. Transportation is another area where the influence of hidden inventors is undeniable. Roads, bridges, canals, and railways were shaped by countless engineers, laborers, and craftsmen who improved construction techniques, durability, and efficiency. While major figures may have secured fame for groundbreaking breakthroughs, the day-to-day improvements, stronger bridge supports, better wagon designs, smoother roads, and refined railroad switches were the work of innumerable individuals whose contributions rarely made the headlines. Every modern commute, whether by car, train, or bike, is made possible by their collective innovations. In industry and manufacturing, the story is similar. Factories and workshops of the 19th and early 20th centuries depended on mechanical ingenuity to improve productivity, safety, and consistency. Belts, gears, pulleys, presses, and early automation devices were refined over years by skilled craftsmen and engineers, many of whom remain unnamed. These small, practical improvements reduced workplace hazards, increased output, and allowed society to meet the growing demands of a rapidly industrializing nation. Today's automated factories, modern tools, and assembly lines are the direct descendants of these invisible efforts, reflecting a continuum of invention that spans generations. Public health, too, bears the imprint of forgotten inventors. Clean water systems, sewage management, sterilization practices, and sanitation devices were often developed incrementally by engineers, craftsmen, and community leaders working quietly to solve pressing problems. Early households and municipalities benefited from these improvements, reducing disease and extending life expectancy. Modern sanitation, plumbing, and health practices are built on the accumulated wisdom of these innovators. Every glass of safe drinking water, every functioning sewer system, and every hospital device carries the echoes of their practical ingenuity. Even education and recreation have been shaped by hidden inventors. Improved school desks, writing instruments, blackboards, toys, musical instruments, and games allowed children and adults to learn, explore, and enjoy their time more effectively. Inventors refined these tools based on observation, experimentation, and user feedback. These seemingly small innovations nurtured creativity, encouraged problem-solving, and enriched social interactions. The legacy of these inventors is felt today in classrooms, playgrounds, music studios, and homes across the nation, where children can access tools and experiences that previous generations could only dream of. The cumulative effect of these invisible contributions is remarkable. Each small improvement, whether in a household device, a factory machine, a bridge, or a schoolroom tool, represents the work of someone who identified a problem, experimented with solutions, and improved daily life. Over time, these incremental changes multiplied, creating a network of practical innovations that underpins modern society. While individual names may have been forgotten, their collective impact remains visible in every corner of American life. This legacy also demonstrates that invention is not always about fame, recognition, or monumental breakthroughs. Many innovations were born from necessity, observation, and careful trial and error. Farmers improved plows, blacksmiths refined tools, Homemakers devised labor-saving devices, and artisans experimented with mechanisms and materials. Each innovation solved immediate problems, often quietly and without acknowledgement, yet the effects reverberated widely. Modern conveniences are the result of countless such incremental contributions. Women, too, played a critical role in shaping modern life through invisible innovation. Their contributions to domestic tools, education, hygiene, and childcare improved daily living for families and communities. From refining household appliances to creating safer environments, their insight and creativity shaped the way Americans worked, lived, and learned. Though often unrecognized formally, the cumulative impact of these contributions is evident in the comfort, efficiency, and safety of modern homes. Infrastructure, health, transportation, recreation, and domestic life all bear the fingerprints of forgotten inventors. Modern American life, with its technological conveniences and practical efficiencies, is only possible because of the persistent efforts of these innovators. Their legacy is not only in the devices and systems themselves, but in the culture of continuous improvement and problem-solving that they established. Each improvement, each refinement, each innovation, no matter how small, built a foundation upon which subsequent generations could innovate further. Reflecting on this hidden legacy offers a new perspective on progress. While history often celebrates iconic inventors, the broader story is one of community, collaboration, and the cumulative impact of countless individuals working quietly to solve problems. Their creativity and persistence remind us that innovation is not solely about recognition or patents. It is about observing challenges, applying practical solutions, and improving life for others. Modern society, in all its complexity and comfort, stands as a monument to these unseen contributors. Today, when Americans use appliances, travel safely, enjoy music, access education, or live in well-designed homes, they are participating in the enduring legacy of these forgotten inventors. Each step taken, each convenience utilized, is a direct descendant of decades of practical ingenuity. Their work, though often anonymous, continues to shape the rhythm, efficiency, and comfort of daily life, proving that innovation is a collective, cumulative journey rather than series of isolated triumphs. In the end, the story of these forgotten inventors is a testament to the power of quiet dedication and persistent problem-solving. They transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary, improving life one practical solution at a time. Their legacy reminds us that progress is not just the work of the famous. It is built on the combined efforts of countless individuals whose ideas endure, shaping modern American life in ways both seen and unseen. Every convenience, every safety measure, every moment of comfort reflects their enduring influence, a tribute to the invisible hands that helped build the nation we know today.